Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is Sean Rogers here at Zyxel. Today, we are going to be doing our monthly new partner introduction. So this is a webinar we put together because, well, we've got over 300 different SKUs out there, and we were constantly coming across new partners who weren't aware of a lot of the solutions that we offer. So this is kind of a high-level overview covering the main products that we sell through the channel here in North America. As we go through today, feel free to send in questions using the question and answer box in the Zoom interface. And I'll do my best to answer those as we go through. If I can't get to them, I'll answer them at the end. But please feel free to ask questions. So we'll start off with a little bit of background on who Zycel is. I know we're not a household brand, and oftentimes when you're talking to your customers, they may not know who Zycel is. They know Cisco Meraki, they know Netgear, but who is Zycel? So Zycel has been making computer networking equipment for a little over 30 years. We started back in 1989. Our US headquarters is based out of Anaheim, California, and we've been in the same neighborhood basically since 1989. Our address has changed a few times, but the same general area. That's where our warehouse is. That's where our marketing team is. It's where our product management team is. And that's where our tech support is. We are a global company. We sell products in 150 different global markets. Our primary business of Zycel has been selling into large internet service providers such as CenturyLink, et cetera. And we have a little over 100 million devices that have been deployed out in the field. So if you're here, it's usually because you've recently joined our partner program. So just wanted to highlight a few things here. You do have a sales rep dedicated to you, so please take advantage of them. As a partner, you have the ability to register deals, getting you a better discount than you would otherwise be able to get, and making sure none of our other resellers working that same deal get that same low pricing for you. Most of our business class products have a lifetime warranty. And as a partner, you have access to our tech support team at a higher priority than the general public does. So we've broken up the US sales team into 3 different regions. So if you're in one of those light blue states on the left there, you are handled by Andy. If you're in one of those purple states, you are handled by Jacob, and everybody else is going to be handled by David. So those are your sales reps. Please reach out to them, talk to them. They can help you. They can help you figure out what products you need. They can help you push distribution if you're having problems finding the product in distribution. They can let you know lead times. So please talk to them and work with them. Now, on the channel side of the business here in North America, we split our products up into a couple different categories. We've got security appliances, wireless, switches, network management, and we've also got a little thing there where it says gateway and access solutions. It's not a huge part of our business here in North America. That'd be things like consumer routers, power line networking, and TR069 managed routers. We're not going to talk about those today, but we are going to talk about all those other categories you see up there. So we're going to start by talking about Nebula. We'll go through it quick, but the reason we're starting here is Nebula is a product offering that we have that basically touches all of the key categories. It's something that you can use to manage our wireless products, our switches, and our security products. So if you are familiar with Cisco's Meraki product, it's the same idea. It is cloud managed networking. It's designed to make it easy for you to manage all of your customers, all of their networks, and to simplify and reduce the amount of time it takes to set up and manage a new network. So we'll just hit some of the highlights here. Nebula is designed to get you up and running in just a few minutes. Back in the days when we used to travel more for COVID, we used to do a live demo where we could take a access point out of a box, create a new Nebula account, have that access point working and broadcasting a captive portal-based wireless network for guests, and the whole process took less than 5 minutes. So Nebula lets you to set up without unboxing. Anytime when you want to start working on your new customer and their new network, you simply log into Nebula and you can start creating and configuring many of the settings that are needed for that network. When you do receive the product, there is no need to take it out of the box. You simply scan the QR code on the outside of the box and assign it to that customer and to the specific network you're going to want it to be on, and then you ship it off to be installed. Installation is as simple as just plugging it in and making sure it has internet access and power. It'll reach out to the cloud, see that it's already been assigned to a customer, and it'll automatically update its firmware and download the configurations needed for that customer site that it's been assigned to. Two exceptions to that. One is our GS1350 series switches. They do require that you log into the GUI and enable cloud mode, and that is because they are switches designed for security products. And then also our security products themselves have a few extra steps there, just because those products are going to be, basically being the gateway, protecting your network from the broader internet out there. So we want to make sure that when being moved into cloud management, that it's being done because you want it to be there. So when it comes to using Nebula, there's no additional software or hardware required. There's no cloud keys. There's no virtual machines that need to be installed somewhere. There's no software. The agent itself is built into our hardware, and then everything else is done through a web browser through nebula.zycel.com. So you don't have to worry about setting up VPNs or port forwards to get remote access. Any device that's being managed by Nebula is available anywhere you have a web browser or our mobile app on your phone. All updates are done over the air. There's no need to go on site to do any configuration changes or firmware updates. It's all handled through the cloud. And Nebula was designed from the ground up to be able to handle multiple customers of yours and multiple sites under those customers. So here's the dashboard you'll see when you first log into Nebula. We've got a number of different widgets here which tell you things that are going on that particular network. At a glance, those widgets are customizable, but it shows you things like which users are using the most traffic, which applications are using the most traffic, how many devices are online versus offline, PoE utilization versus budget, etc. And then up here at the top, we've got drop-down menus. One side is different customers of yours. The other side is the different networks under those customers. So it's really quick to jump from one customer to the next or one network to the next. And then over on the left-hand side here, this is where you do your configuration. We've got it broken out to settings for the customer in general, settings for the individual site that you might be managing, and then the settings for each of the different classes of products that can be managed through Nebula. Come on there we go. So Nebula itself is free. Everything I've talked about up to this point is free. Now, Nebula does offer some additional licenses that unlock additional features, and we'll talk a little bit about them, but not too much. We have a dedicated Nebula webinar that we do. We go a little bit more in depth onto this for those of you that want to learn more. So when we first launched Nebula, we did it similar to how Cisco handles Meraki. There was a line of products that are cloud managed that was called Nebula, and there was everything else, which was branded Zyxel and could not be managed in the cloud. However, we've gone back now and we've changed that. And now the majority of products that we use are what we call Nebula Flex. Basically, these are products that can be used either standalone, as you would traditionally manage them via CLI, via web GUI, SNMP, whatever have you, or can be put into cloud managed mode. So that's what we call Nebula Flex. Some products you will see will be called Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex Pro in general just means, in addition to having the dual modes for management, it includes a 1-year license for what we call professional pack included with that device. So that unlocks some additional features. Now, when it comes to our access point, Nebula Flex Pro products can be managed in the cloud. They can be managed directly. They can also be managed with one of our local wireless area controllers. So if you're looking to do wireless or management of wireless APs, but you don't want to use the cloud, you want to look for Nebula Flex Pro, even though you aren't going to be using Nebula. So that's it for Nebula. Then we'll start moving in here to security products. This is probably the product that most of you are most curious about, and it is the product line that I know the least about. So I will do my best if there's any questions to answer them, but I may need to defer on some of these. So our security products have been ICSA certified now for over 20 years straight. For those not familiar, ICSA Labs is an independent testing body that tests VPN and firewall products and validates the level of protection that's being offered. So that's something that we've been certified with them for 20 years now. Another thing we do a little bit different is it's normal for security gateways to include additional features, antivirus, content filtering, etc., on the firewall gateway itself. And the way most products handle this is the company that's making the firewall product that you're buying is also trying to be a security expert and recognize, find these new threats, classify them, and push out the signatures. We do it differently. We've partnered with industry leaders to provide these UTM services or the signatures that are behind those UTM services rather than trying to do it all in-house. Our focus is on the hardware and the software running directly on that. We are not a security antivirus company. We are not a content filtering company. So we've partnered with companies like McAfee, Lastline, Trend Micro, Bitdefender to provide those services that are part of our security package. So we'll go through real quickly here some of the features you'll find on our security products. The ability to set up link aggregation groups, basically allowing you to merge ports together. High availability pro. So if for some reason your firewall goes down, a second one can automatically take over. SSL packet inspection, the ability to apply UTM rules and filters to SSL encrypted data. So that's something we can do. If you're looking for making user-based rules and policies, we have Radius and Active Directory integration support. We offer high availability on VPNs. We offer the ability to do WAN load balancing and multiple WANs. And then on the VPN side of things, we have a lightweight SSL VPN software that you can use for users running Windows or Mac to create a very lightweight VPN connection back to your central office. We support L2TP over IPsec, which works with the built-in Windows VPN functionality. A little bit harder to configure than the SSL VPN secure extender, probably a little bit more heavy-duty encryption there. We have an easy VPN wizard built into the GUI to make things easier there for you as far as setting up site-to-site VPNs. And then on the UTM side of things, depending on which product we're looking at, we have features like antivirus built into the gateway, content filtering, again, including encrypted SSL encrypted websites. What's something we call layer 7 application intelligence. This is signatures that allow us to recognize individual applications or individual features of those applications to make it easy for you to create policy rules based on the application itself, rather than doing it based on traffic type and port and IP. Geo enforcers, sandbox and machine learning, botnet and malware blockers, intrusion detection and prevention, reputation filters, etc. In addition to all of that, most of our security gateways also have a built-in Wi-Fi controller, which can manage any of our 500 and higher access points. So generally, most of the gateways will support a certain number of APs out of the box for free, and then you can use licenses to allow the ability to manage more APs. We also have the ability to do a full hotspot management suite. So it allows you to do things like, guest access to the network, captive portals, having people agree to a terms of service to get on, having people log in with a username and password, etc. We are also certified for Amazon and Microsoft's cloud-hosted applications, their cloud network. So you can create what's essentially a VPN tunnel directly from one of our gateways to the Amazon or Microsoft cloud, allowing you to host applications in the cloud, but have your local users be able to access them as if they were hosted there locally on your local area network. So when it comes to our security gateway products, we group them together into 3 different categories. On the simple side of things here, we have our VPN series. So these are our secure firewall appliances that are really focused on just being a good, tough firewall and having support for a lot of VPN tunnels. On the flexible side of things, we have our Usg Flex series of products. So these again are a strong, secure firewall gateway, but they offer UTM services. We sell them both with the UTM services bundled, or you can add them a la carte. And then we have the ATP series here under Ultimate. So we got a little comparison here showing you the feature differences. As you can see, all three lines here offer VPN IPsec support, the virtual private network to both Amazon and Microsoft, built-in wireless LAN controller. And then we start noticing here, content filtering is an option on the VPN series. It is bundled by default here with Usg Flex and the ATP. Hotspot management is an option there for you on both the VPN series and the Usg Flex. And then we have support for Secure Reporter, which we've got a slide coming up on. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But then you'll see in general, any of your UTM services are limited here to the Usg Flex. And then by going up to the ATP, in addition to standard UTM type services, it adds the ability to do sandboxing, IP reputation filter, and DNS reputation filter. So we also offer SD-WAN, but SD-WAN is not a different piece of hardware. So first off, let's talk about what is SD-WAN, and I'll do my best to explain it for you. But basically, a lot of large companies with multiple sites want to have a fast, dedicated connection between those sites. A very common application for this is a centrally managed voice-based VoIP server that all the remote offices then connect back to. And it works really well because it's a fast, dedicated connection. So it's usually provided by MPLS or some other types of technologies, depending on it, from your large ISPs, your AT&Ts, your Verizons. So SD-WAN is designed to offer that sort of level of high quality of service, high throughput over the public internet. And it works because basically you control the WAN connection at all of your sites, and it allows us to tweak and modify the rules from the standard internet rules to optimize things. So this SD-WAN functionality is a feature that you unlock with a license for our VPN series products, and only the VPN series products. So if you're looking to do an SD-WAN solution, you would buy VPN series products and then buy the license to convert them into an SD-WAN appliance. But basically it allows us to do all sorts of little fun behind the scenes stuff, which make a dramatic impact on performance versus just sending it out over the public internet. So here's an example here. We're creating a VPN connection between our office in Germany and our office in Taiwan. As you can see down here, there is about a 300 millisecond ping time for the round trip ping. There's a 0.3% loss and a very small 3 millisecond jitter. So if we use FTP and send this file between these locations over the public internet, the speed gradually declines and we end up taking nearly 3 hours. By using SD-WAN and sending them over a VPN connection that's been optimized using this SD-WAN technology, it only takes 10 minutes to send that same Linux distribution. So I want to talk really quick here about the ATP series. This is still relatively new technology, and there's a chance you may not be familiar with it. So traditional UTM, including our Usg Flex, works based on signatures, right? For the antivirus, the ADP, et cetera. Basically, either the company itself making the firewall, or in our case, we partner again with third parties, basically monitors what's going on the internet through various honeypots and other things like that, looking for what sort of traffic people might encounter. And then based on that, they're able to quantify what's good and what's bad and send out signatures, which basically say, hey, this stuff's probably good, this stuff's probably bad, you should probably block it. The problem you run into is stuff where we don't really know. Especially on the internet, there's always new applications and new attacks coming out to market. So there's always new behaviors that need to be seen, discovered, quantified, turned into a signature and pushed out. And that is the area where ATP shines. Whereas with the conventional UTM, there's a delay between when some type of new traffic, whether it's a threat or not, gets out onto the internet and when signatures are created and pushed out. So with the ATP series, We're using a sandbox functionality here, where basically when we see a new type of traffic and we don't know if it's good or bad, we have the ability to basically contain those packets, move them into a cloud-based sandbox, and be able to run them through some very heavy-duty analysis to determine, hey, is this something good or is this something bad? So the one providing this service is called Last Line. So they're the company we're using to provide this. But basically what it lets you do is it lets you more quickly be able to recognize new types of traffic and classify them as good or bad for your network so you can apply your rules as needed. Basically, everybody who has an ATP is connected to the cloud. So as soon as one of our users sees this new type of traffic, it gets sandboxed, uploaded to the cloud, the analysis is done, and then it's pushed out to all of the ATP users. You get a much quicker turnaround and a lot less risk of zero-day type threats. So that's it for security as far as the hardware goes. And now we'll just talk really briefly about SecuReporter. So SecuReporter is our cloud-based service that basically provides you a centralized location for reports and analysis of what's going on your customers' networks. So it gives you one URL to go to, you log in, it takes log data, application data, security data from our security appliances, uploads those into the cloud, performs analytics on them, and then outputs a number of different types of visual reports. So these reports tell you, who, what, where, when, and why, basically, who was attacked, who was the attacker, when did it take place, etc. So it gives you a number of reports here, and you can brand those reports with your own branding, so you can send them to your customers, so you can show them what the security appliance has been doing for them. It makes it a lot easier when the first year or whatever of security subscriptions expire and you need to get them to renew, to be able to show them, look, this is all the stuff we've protected you from over the last year. This is why you need to renew those security services. So in addition to just the general stuff, it could be a tool to help you find risky users on your network. I think the general 80-20 rule applies here. 80% of the problems are caused by 20% of your users. And just like Nebula, it's hosted in the cloud and it's designed to handle multiple customers, multiple networks very easily. So now we'll move on from security, since there's no questions so far that have come in, and we'll talk about switches. We've got lots of switches, and it is one of the biggest areas of confusion for people. So we'll start here by just talking a little bit about how you can use the model name as you see it on the price list or load it up at distribution to try to get an idea of what that switch is and whether it has the features you need. So all of our switches will start with a 2 or 3 letter prefix. If it starts with ES, basically it's telling you it's only a 100 meg switch. All of the ports support 100 megabits per second. If it starts with GS, it's telling you all of the ports are gigabit ports. So they're all gigabit ports. That's what the vast bulk of our switches here in North America are. I don't think we're selling any ES switches in North America, although you will still see them globally. The next up is the XS. So XS is telling you that all of the ports support multi-gig, usually 10 gig, although it may not, it may be some other multi-gig, but usually it means all ports are 10 gig. XGS, that's telling you that most of the ports are 1 gig ports, but there are 10 gig uplink ports or some other form of multi-gig uplink port. And then there are the MGS switches, the Metro Series switches. We don't really offer those or sell a lot of those in North America, but those are switches that are designed specifically for telco ISP use. And then you will see oftentimes a letter at the end of the model number. So if you see P, it tells you it supports standard 802.3 AT PoE. If you see HP, it's telling you it supports PoE plus or PoE plus plus. So that's 802.3 AF or 802.3 was a BT. And then if you see F, it's telling you all of the ports are fiber ports. Now, one thing we do which causes a little bit of confusion is that we have what are called combo ports. So we look at this example here. You will see that there are 8 standard ports on this switch right here. And then you will see, which at least at first glance looks like an additional 4 uplink ports. These are our combo ports. And what you will see here is there are 2 copper ports and there are 2 SFP ports for fiber. But these are not 4 ports. This is actually 2 ports as far as the back end is concerned. So you have the choice for either port of using either copper or fiber. So you can use one or the other, but not both at the same time for that same port. So in this case, we would classify this as an 8-port switch because you've got 8 standard ports and then you've got 2 uplink ports here, again, with 4 physical connections for those 2 ports because we're giving you the flexibility of using copper or fiber as needed. So when you're looking at the switches in general, FFP ports are 1 gig fiber ports, SFP plus are multi-gig fiber ports. So if you've got a higher end switch, an XGS series switch or an XS switch, you will need to buy SFP plus modules to take advantage of those multi-gig speeds. And then on our higher end switches, we have physical switch stacking with dedicated stacking ports. And we do sell a special, what's called a DAC, direct attached cable, for connecting those switches together. However, almost all of our switches support a virtual or software-based stacking, particularly if you're using Nebula, allowing you to manage multiple switches at once. So next up, when talking again about model numbers, is we've got a lot of different series of switches. It sort of gives you an idea of the feature set. So again, when you're looking at those model numbers, by looking at the first couple digits and how many digits there are, it gives you an idea of what sort of features that switch offers. So you'll see here, we're calling effortless. These are our plug and play non-managed switches. So 100 series, 1000 series, 1100 series, 1300 series. We have what we're calling the Simplicity series. So these are our low-end managed switches. They provide a web GUI for management and provide basic management features. The difference between a 1200 series and a 1900 series, or the 1900 series, has more functionality. And just in general, as the numbers get bigger, the more functionality is provided by those switches. So these would be considered like a layer 2 light switch. The 1200 series would be similar to a smart managed switch, I guess. Then we have our flexibility series. So again, still web managed. And these just are offering more of your full layer 2 feature set. So that's the 1350 series, the 1920 series, the 1930 series. And then we've got the ultimate here, which is our 200, 2000, 3000, 4000 series switches. So on the 200s and 2000s here, or excuse me, the 2000s, these switches offer a command line interface as well as web GUI, where these other switches here in these 2 categories are only web GUI, no CLI, except for the 1350, which confuses things, but in general. So you're getting the CLI, and then when you get up here to the 3 and 4000 series, you're going from a layer 2 switch to a layer 3 or layer 3 light switch. And then when it comes to Nebula management, you can see here it's the flexibility and ultimate series. Specifically as far as Nebula Flex goes, it's the 1350, the 1920, the 1930, and then also on the ultimate series, the 2220 and 3800s. So I'm not going to really go through these in deep down. It's just showing you here, here's our Simplicity series. Most of the 1200s or all of the 1200s are desktop type switches. Jumping up to the 1900 gets you rack mount size switches. Not all of them, but most of them are rack mountable or rack mount form factor, as well as, like I said, some additional features, a little bit more in-depth functionality of that managed interface. The 1920 series here is giving you almost a full layer 2 type feature set, as well as Nebula management. The 1930s versus the 1920s, the primary difference is the 1930 series are either going to be XS or XGS, meaning they've got 10 gig uplinks, whereas the 1920s generally do not. And then the 2220 series here, this is probably one of our best sellers. This is our true layer 2 switch. Nebula management is an option there for you. If you need 10 gig uplinks, you need to go up to the XGS Series 2210s. So on the PoE side of things, we have an interesting feature here, which is what we would call intelligent PoE management or consumption-based PoE management. And basically the way PoE is supposed to work is that products are classified as a class. And when they handshake between the device and the PoE switch, they basically say, hey, this is what class of product I am. And the PoE switch will allocate power based on that category or that class. The problem is there are big jumps between the classes. And oftentimes that ends up leaving you a lot of unused PoE budget that's getting allocated that isn't needed. So most of our switches have the ability to monitor the actual PoE draw from connected devices and then free up the rest of the allocated PoE budget to another device. So you can plug in more devices on the same switch with the same PoE power budget. So to give an example here, here's a little bit semi-fancy VoIP desktop phone. It is classified as a class 3 device, so it will request from the switch 15.4 watts of power. In reality, though, in this example, the phone only needs 9 watts of power. So basically, you're wasting 6 watts of power per device. So what you see here is if you plugged in 24 of these phones using the industry standard official way of doing PoE allocation, you would need a budget of 370 watts. However, if you use consumption mode, you only need a PoE budget of 216 watts to power those same 24 phones. And then a similar example here using a pan tilt zoom camera. This is a class 4 device. So you notice the last one was a class 3. By definition, that should reserve 15.4 watts. Class 4, the next step up, doubles the amount of budget that's being allocated to 30 watts. So it's a huge jump. You're doubling the amount of power that gets reserved per device using the industry standard way. So using our consumption mode, you can see this particular camera uses just 16 watts. So to plug in 20 of these, using the standard way of doing things would require 600 watts of PoE budget. But with our consumption mode, we can drop that down to just 320 watts of PoE budget being reused. Now, we want to do a few slides here on the 1350 series because these are an unusual series of switches that have some unusual features in them. These were a series of switches that we originally put together specifically to target the IPTV camera space. So those of you guys doing IP security cameras, that's what these were designed for, but you can use them in a lot of other applications as well. So officially, they are considered a surveillance PoE switch. So some of the cool stuff that they can do is they can provide data and PoE power up to 250 meters instead of the standard 100 meters. So what that's telling us here is, that works with any attached PoE device. It doesn't require anything special. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to drop the speed from your standard gig or 100 megabits per second. It'll drop the speed down to 10 megabits per second to support this extended range. But for most IP camera streams, that's still plenty of throughput to be able to support those streams. These switches also have the ability to do continuous PoE power. So if for some reason the switch reboots or you apply a configuration change and it reboots the switch, it doesn't stop providing PoE power. So the connected device, while it will lose connectivity, doesn't have to power cycle and reboot back up. So as soon as that switch is back online, your connected device is back online. We also have a camera status screen, which will show you what connected devices are. It'll give you a link to their IP address for management purposes and give you the ability to power cycle individually connected devices. And we have this automatic camera recovery mode, which again, doesn't only have to be used with cameras. It allows us to basically monitor an attached device using either LLDP or ping. And if that device becomes non-responsive, we can automatically reboot that device. And these switches generally have higher surge protection. On the accessory side of things, just real quick on the switches, we do provide and sell different types of SFP, SFP plus modules, and those direct attached cables we were talking about earlier for stacked switches. So that's it for switches. And again, guys, if you have questions, send them in using that question and answer interface in Zoom. So we'll talk now about our wireless products. And just to keep things simple, we're going to focus on those products that are aimed at the VAR space. I'm going to ignore products that are aimed more at the consumer and prosumer space for today's presentation. And basically, we've got two series of products for you, the flexible series and the ultimate series. On the flexible side of things are those access points that have either 3 or 4 digits in the model name and start with 1 or 2. And then the ultimate series are those devices that start with 5 and 6, and again, have either 3 or 4 digits in their model name. So regardless of which series you are looking at, whether you're looking at a little $89 access point or our $650 access point, we build them using the same design philosophies that are designed to maximize performance and, more importantly, maximize life of the product. That's the reason why we can offer lifetime warranties on a lot of our really inexpensive access points where most of our competition is only offering 1 year or 2. So some of the things we do differently. Our houses have vent holes so heat can get out. So one of the major causes of failure on a solid state device like this is heat fatigue. So that's designed to help combat heat fatigue. So we've got vent holes where one of our biggest competitors has none, trapping the heat inside. You'll also see we've got this big metal plate that sits behind the PCBA, and that's basically a large heat sink designed to draw heat off of the board components and vent them out those vent holes. So because we're keeping the heat down, the solid state components are going to last longer. In addition, to help us with longevity, we do not use any electrolytic capacitors. All capacitors are solid state, so they'll last longer. And then on the RF side of things, you will see that we mount our antennas on their own separate PCBA. We do not mount them directly onto the PCBA like most of our competitors, including guys like Ruckus do. It gives us extra separation, so there is less background interference coming from any sources of EMI. Another thing you will notice is we've got a lot more shielding on our board than most of our competition does. So most of our competition, they just have basic EMI shielding on there. We add additional shielding that's specifically designed to handle bleed over from 4G and 5G connections. So this is really a common problem if you are in a larger office building and you're using some sort of DAS device to distribute cellular coverage inside the building. So that extra shielding helps protect from that. So the combination of the two means the product's going to last longer and you're going to get just that much better performance out of the product because of the engineering and the design choices we've made. So we've got a technology that we offer that you may not be familiar with. It's something we call dual optimized antennas. Your traditional access point has basically one set of fixed antennas that are optimized with the idea that you're going to mount the access point on the ceiling over the area where you're providing coverage. It provides essentially an umbrella shaped coverage area for those users. Unfortunately, in the real world out there, you don't always get to mount it on the ceiling directly above where the users are. Oftentimes you end up having to mount it onto a wall. So when you do that, you get suboptimal coverage patterns. You end up sending a lot of your signal up into the ceiling or down into the floor. And if you're in a multi-story building, it can cause interference between the floors. So what we offer is this dual optimized antenna option, where we've basically got two sets of antennas. One that's optimized for your traditional ceiling mount and one that's optimized for wall mount. So you can go in and set, depending on where you've installed this particular AP, to use either the ceiling or the wall mount antenna pattern. The other technology we offer is something called smart antenna. So just to hit up here, because this is something that gets brought up a lot, smart antenna is not beamforming. They're separate technologies with different goals. So don't confuse the two. Smart antenna is different than beamforming. So smart antenna technology, I'm going to skip through these sort of explanations here, is basically designed to solve this issue here. Again, we've talked about before, most of your APs have a single fixed antenna pattern optimized for the ceiling. Or in the case of like a point-to-point link, it's optimized to shoot the signal in a very particular direction. So smart antenna, instead of giving you just that one antenna pattern, gives you the option to have hundreds of antenna patterns. And this is optimal not only for being able to focus the coverage of the access point to where the users are in relationship to that access point, but it also, with the algorithm we use, is optimized to help avoid sources of interference. So that could be things like microwaves, industrial equipment, or simply other access points or wireless devices that are using the same or overlapping channel. So basically, with Smart Antenna, when you encounter a source of RF interference, it's able to change the antenna pattern to try to ignore that source of interference. And Smart Antenna doesn't require anything special on the client side. And unlike beamforming, it works just fine with mobile users who are moving around. So this is an example here, 5 gig throughput, comparing our WAX 650S with the HP Aruba AP515. Both are a 4x4 11AX Wi-Fi device. And you will see here, we offer Smart Antenna, they don't. And in our testing here, you can see we are green, they are blue, considerably better performance in our test environment. So for those of you wanting to learn more on Smart Antenna, I talk about it a little bit more in some of our Wi-Fi 101 webinars. But there was a third-party group here a few years back at the University of Brescia in Italy. Their networking group got together and decided to test claims made by us and Ruckus, the two big Smart Antenna vendors, and compare us to HP and Cisco, who don't offer Smart Antenna, to see, is this just marketing fluff or is there actually a difference here? So you can see that link there. You can go to their website and actually read the entire study that they did and all the details. If you just simply search Zyxel Smart Antenna, it should pull up a white paper where we highlight some of the conclusions, so you can print that out, give it to your users. But just a quick snapshot summary here, Smart Antenna performed up to 70% better in real world environments where there is sources of co-channel interference. 56% better specifically against Cisco's product, and we did up to 45% better than Ruckus's Smart Antenna implementation. So I want to talk really quick here about Wi-Fi 6. So Wi-Fi 6 is a relatively new, or is the latest technology as far as it comes to Wi-Fi. So it's been designed to solve a lot of the problems that have plagued Wi-Fi for a long time. And again, I go more in depth in this on my semi-monthly Wi-Fi 101 webinar if you want to learn a lot more. But it basically gives us higher theoretical throughput, almost 10 gigs of theoretical throughput, larger capacity, allowing you to have more users on the same access point and more access points in the same area. And it is the first technology since 11N that improves 2.4 gigahertz performance. 11AC only increased performance on the 5 gigahertz radio. So some of the cool technologies behind this is we now can do MIMO, both upstream and downstream, which is new. We've upgraded the from OFDM to OFDMA. We have higher encryption up to 1024 QAM, or not encryption, modulation, encoding of data onto the waves there. Something called BSS coloring, which helps solve some interference issues, and targeted wake-up time to make better use of airtime utilization. So this is just showing here, we talked about it before when we were talking about our Zywall products or our security products, is that we do offer a on-premise controller. So you have the option of direct management, cloud management, or an on-premise controller. And it offers basically the same set of features you would get in the cloud, although sometimes the implementations are a little bit different. But this is mostly for those of you who just don't trust the cloud, or your user doesn't trust the cloud and you want that local management. It offers mesh, it offers fast roaming, it offers all those same sort of things. It's generally, if you have a large network with a lot of load balancing and things like that, a local controller works a little bit better than the cloud, is you can have larger groups than you can with the cloud. This is just showing here all the different models of our security gateway, and you can see here in this column out of the box, the VPN 50 can manage 4 APs, the VPN 100 all the way up to the Usg Flex 700 manage 8 out of the box, and then the ATPs have different numbers based on whether or not you've got an active gold pack membership. And then over here is the max number of APs that can be managed. So if you've got a lot of APs, the VPN 1000 can manage over 1,000 access points. And that, guys, concludes today's webinar. I know I went through a lot of different topics. I went through a lot of them really fast. So if you have questions or there were some products I didn't talk about, feel free to send those in using that question and answer interface. I'll stick around here for a few minutes. In the meantime, just to draw your attention, most of our webinars are recorded and then posted to our YouTube page. So if you missed a webinar or you went to a webinar and you think one of your coworkers or your employees would benefit from attending, you can always point them to our YouTube page. There's a lot of different Zyxel YouTubes. So the one here for North America for us is called Zyxel America channel. And then we're on LinkedIn. Feel free to give us a like and connect over there on LinkedIn. And again, no questions. So I'll just also draw your attention to our web-based forum. So we do have a user forum. Like other vendors, it's designed to allow you to talk to other Zyxel users and installers. Unlike some of our competition, though, the forums are monitored by our R&D and product management teams. And you will often see them responding directly to questions or feedback that you may post there. Our forum is also the first place where you will usually see security advisories, firmware release notes, etc. So go check that out. We've got no questions, so thanks for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar and keep an eye out for some of the other webinars we've got coming this month.